Hello, welcome. It's so good to have you join us again on this edition of the program Business Week. Hi, I'm Frank Komalape. Here's what's coming up in a moment. The Central Bank of Nigeria appointed new chief executive for Keystone, Buharis, and Union banks following the dissolution of the board and management of the banks. Plus, the World Bank projects Nigeria's economy will expand by 3.3% in 2024 fiscal year, higher than the 2.9% projected in the previous year. And finally, outside Nigeria, U.S. securities regulator has approved the first U.S.-listed exchange-traded funds to track Bitcoin in a watershed for the world's largest cryptocurrency industry. This and many more are what to expect on the show. Please stay with us. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Let's begin with the major stories that made headlines in the week. Now, the World Bank has projected Nigeria's economy to grow at 3.3% this year. That's about 0.4% higher than the 2.9% expected to have closed last year. In its global economic prospects, the World Bank expected the economy to firm further to 3.7% next year over the global output growth. This projection is above the estimated global average of 2.3% and June forecasts, which were 3.0 and 3.1% respectively. The bank also said the macro fiscal reforms that started in June are bearing fruit, saying per capita income will reach its pre-pandemic levels in 2025. And also in the course of the week, an international cocoa and chocolate forum was held in Abuja to seek ways of boosting production in the industry. The forum, with the theme putting value on cocoa producing regions, is hoping that the lost glory of the commodity as a past economic mainstay can be restored. Lara Folanyo reports.
Cocoa was in times past a major foreign exchange earner for Nigeria, with the country being the world's second largest producer of the commodity. The discovery of crude, however, changed this narrative as the country's market share in the global cocoa market dipped marginally. Data from the country's export promotion authorities show Nigeria, however, remains a key player in the global cocoa industry, with an over 6% share of world production, which is expected to hopefully increase in the coming years by at least 4% per annum. This International Cocoa and Chocolate Forum is now seeking ways the commodities' improved production in Nigeria can become a reality.
Across the countryside, value is being added to the raw growth and to the agricultural products. I wholeheartedly agree with the conveners that a major key to achieving this broad vision is to create a cocoa culture that makes investing in industry attractive.
Only when we have people who can put their mind into it, who can generate attention and value, then only can we realize. But at the minimum, we should solve the financing problem and ensure that we de-risk agriculture.
The thinking here is that policy formulation, adequate investment drive, alongside other measures, will aid value addition in the cocoa industry towards improved non-oil GDP growth and wealth creation for the nation.
Awareness about the economic value of cocoa and its value chain opportunities, while bringing to the fore the need to do more to develop the local cocoa culture and an economy that will subsequently transform our producing communities.
To double the current country's GDP to over $1 trillion in the next 5 to 8 years. For us, at International Cocoa Diplomacy, we believe this is possible. If everyone can take a micro part of the economy and begin to build, to create value.
The International Cocoa and Chocolate Forum is an initiative of the International Cocoa Diplomacy Platform. It is a forum for collaborating and forming new alliances for the cocoa subsector's development. Lara Folanyo, TVC News, Abuja.
And away from there now, the Central Bank of Nigeria has appointed new chief executives for Keystone, Buharis, and Union banks following the dissolution of the board and management of the banks. This is contained in a statement issued by the Apex Bank Acting Director, Corporate Communications Department, Ms. Hakama Sidiali, in Abuja. According to the statement, Ms. Yetunde Oni is now the new Managing Director, Chief Executive Officer of Union Bank, while Mr. Manin Ringim is the new Executive Director of the bank. For Keystone Bank, Mr. Hassan Iman is the new Managing Director, CEO, while Ms. Choma Mank is the new Executive Director. The Apex Bank said Mr. Lawal Akintola is also appointed as Managing Director, CEO of Buharis Bank, and Mr. Chris Ofikolo as Executive Director. The appointment take immediate effect. And also in the week, the federal government has reiterated its commitment to ensure food security in the country. The Minister of Agriculture and Food Security, Senator Abubakar Okiari, said this when Katsina State Governor, Mr. Dikko Rada, paid him a courtesy call in Abuja. The minister said Katsina State remained one of the frontline states in the quest to achieving President Bola Tinubu's food security agenda through the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security. It disclosed that the ministry is committed to achieving the federal government's plan to cultivate about 500,000 hectares of arable lands to ensure food security. Earlier, Governor Rada disclosed that insecurity affecting food production and security of lives and property had been reduced by 70% in Katsina. He said without adequately tackling insecurity, there couldn't be food production due to the activities of criminal elements in the state, while disclosing that plans were on the way to revive the livestock industry in the state. And also in the course of the week, U.S. securities regulator has approved the first U.S.-listed exchange-traded funds to track Bitcoin in a watershed for the world's largest cryptocurrency and the broader crypto industry. The agency approved applications including from BlackRock, ARK Investment, and 21 Shares, Fidelity, among others. This will be a game changer for Bitcoin, offering institutional and retail investors exposure to the world's largest cryptocurrency without directly holding it, and a major boost for crypto industry beset by a string of scandals. Managing Director and Senior FinTech Analyst at Rosenblatt Securities, Mr. Andrew Bond, says it is a huge positive for the institutionalization of Bitcoin as an asset class and will further legitimize Bitcoin. Well, those were some of the biggest stories in the business week. Well, after this break, the 2024 fiscal year and macroeconomic environment in Nigeria present a mixed outlook for the business and investment climate. Well, that's a talking point after we return from this short break. Let's stay with us. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. You'll be watching Business Week coming to you from our studios here in Lagos. Let's get into our conversation for today now. The 2024 fiscal year and macroeconomic environment in Nigeria present a mixed outlook for the business and investment climate. Despite facing challenges such as global economic slowdown, persistent inflation, and weak economic fundamentals, the country's economy is expected to grow modestly, with real GDP growth projected to range between 3.3% in 2024 and 3.7% in 2025, according to World Bank projections. According to experts, high inflation, tight financial conditions, and financial constraints may persist in the first half of the year. But what are the potentials in the 2024 fiscal year? Well, that's the biggest question as we get talking now. I've been joined by the lead partner at Cardinal Professional Services, Mr. Emmanuel Onasami. He joins me virtually now. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Onasami, for your time. Let's get started this way. The Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council, PEBEC, report shows that the economy is poised to improve greatly in 2024, given the ongoing macroeconomic reform agenda of the federal government. So this optimism has also been corroborated by the bank, the World Bank's projection that the economy will grow by 3.3% in 2024 and 3.7% in 2025 accordingly. So let me ask you, what do you make of these projections?
Okay, thank you very much, Frank, for having me on the show this week, and let's put it this way, the PEBEC, the federal government, we can box them in one one category, and maybe we compare them to what the World Bank is saying and other reports. There's always the place of being optimistic because you are the driver, you understand, and you're trying to get in the right direction as a government, you understand, but just supposing what's the outlook from other sources, of McKinsey, the Bloomberg, comparing everything together, I think one thing that is important to note is that 2023, the past period, is obviously a very, very unique period that has turned the dynamics of the economy down south, and makes livelihood for Nigerians a bit tough, And 2024, that then left 2024 with major two options, like two main options. Is either Nigeria comes back on a slow recovery, or maybe things get a bit worse than we have experienced in 2023. We are all hoping that things pick up, although the projection has been that it will pick up slowly, and that it can only even be achieved if some of the measures that are needed to encourage recovery are strongly addressed and are implemented without any form of reservation.
All right, the president in his New Year's address emphasized the government's plan to address bottlenecks. They also talk about reducing trade restrictions, especially tariffs review to lower the cost of key input for producers. What are your expectations as regards the impact of these measures on business environment and the competitiveness of Nigerian industries? And secondly, I would also like you to talk about which of these elements is most critical for unlocking Nigeria's true economic potentials, given some of his target in his New Year speech.
Okay, thank you very much. I would like to first mention that Nigeria has never lacked ideas on how to get out of any predicaments that the country may be facing per time. I think is a commitment, to implementing those ideas that we have lacked in the past. There could be many reasons why, implementation may have suffered, but let me give the kudos to the current government. They seem to have identified the areas that they want to, address, and the president, even from January, has started putting a strong note on ground, by some measures, that were there to cut the cost of governance. You can look at the travel policy and all that, and also send a strong message around corruption. To answer your questions, let me say that, we may count the cost of corruption, a bit lower than it may seem to be, beyond what it does to sentiment and all that. I also think that, if Nigeria must recover, Nigeria currently has a very huge infrastructural gap, and government needs to make some significant investment in the economy. And if you look at the way corruption works, you find a budget, and if at all any element of that budget is padded for the purpose of being siphoned, you realize that although the country is borrowing for proposed impact, the impact that is supposed to be, experienced by the people through those borrowings may not be experienced, where those funds are not properly utilized for the purpose of governance and are siphoned through corruption. So corruption still stands as a major bane to whatever recovery that we are going to experience in 2024. So more stronger notes and more stronger measures around curbing corruption and ensuring that whatever fund Nigeria as an economy is able to garner or borrow for the purpose of development is actually plugged into the economy to stimulate the economy and give some level of relief to the economy. And as such, I think one of the things that I would love the government to be very, very decisive about in 2024 is to send stronger message on corruption and see to it that whatever has been appropriated in the is used for the purpose of stimulating the percent, you will see the economy based on that alone. But if that is not the case, you will see many leakages, and we keep borrowing money, but we can't see the impact, in the economy.
Well, interesting analysis here. Pardon me to cut in. Talking about sending strong messages on corruption, I believe the president has begun with suspension of some of the members of his cabinet. But let's talk about the need for reforms at the subnational level. Where do they come in to support the effort at the federal government level? And secondly, what specific reforms do you suppose are required at the subnational level to further improve the business climate environment across the 36 states of the Federation?
Oh, thank you very much. And I was going to speak to that, but thank you for raising that question. Let me pick it from security. I think it's high time that some other states take a clue from Lagos state government. When it comes to the issue of security, beyond what the federal government is doing to tackle security, the governor of every state is the #1 security officer, the chief security officer of the state. And there must be some strategic collaboration at the federal, state, and even local government level to tackle insecurity in a manner that can enable business and prosperity within that environment. Look at the Lagos State Trust Fund and the news that broke out, is it just yesterday, about the private sector playing a key role, providing the fund required, to ensure that the environment is safe and make prosperity possible. I think every other state government needs that level of engagement, at the state level with key stakeholders within their jurisdiction to ensure that, the environment is stable enough for economic prosperity. Stability is key for economic prosperity, and I think there has to be a deliberate, effort at the subnational level to ensure that also state governments need to also rethink, their approach to, generating sustainable IGR, within the economy. A focus in the past has been on federal allocation and maybe some level of state internally generated revenue through taxes that are collected, subnationally. But I also think that at the subnational level, reforms around agriculture needs to be deliberate to say, okay, as a state, how can we empower our rural communities to make them productive at the agricultural level and make sure that, the state is sustainable enough to feed itself, which is the #1 goal every subnational state, should be gunning at. How are you able to support, the rural community to feed the state and possibly have some surplus to earn additional income, for the state, and the state level also, we also need to look at critical support that needs to be given to SMEs and youth empowerment within our state. The big question that hangs around our subnationals is that the fact that how is it that Nigerians are still despite the fact that they are unemployed, they are still unable to take the opportunity that lurks around in the opportunity areas in the economy. For example, the oil and gas industry. What are we doing at the subnational level to equip our youths to take the local, opportunity within that industry rather than just waiting for grants or bursaries that the companies operating in that sector are giving? Look at the Dangote refinery, for example. How come Dangote refinery still need to look for technicians outside Nigeria, despite the fact that we have a teeming youth, that are seeking employment? There has to be a deliberate effort at the subnational level in partnership with the federal government and local government to ensure that areas of opportunity in the economy, Nigerians are able to take those opportunities and not outsiders coming into Nigeria to take those opportunities.
Well, I know you touched on the need to develop agriculture earlier while you were talking, but let's talk more on that, right? Food is critical to survival of the average Nigerian. You mentioned earlier the insecurity as a key challenge, in achieving food security. Perhaps it's time to start thinking outside the box to boost agricultural productivity and achieve food security for Nigeria's growing population, which is growing at an alarming rate of about 3%. But what available alternatives can the nation subscribe to?
Okay, there have been some agricultural scheme and programs in the past that the past government has pursued, but I think one of the things that may not have been the focus is going about it in a very sustainable framework, yeah, sustainable empowerment, through agriculture. So we do consult for a number of governments concern, when looking at policy development. And one of the conversations that we are bringing on the table very strongly, in recent time is the deliberate, collaboration between state governments and local governments in a way of empowering rural communities, right? When it comes to cash crops, and in food, to identify some rural community partnership, rural community to do farming in a better organized and mechanized way. And such private sector also partner with those local clusters of farmers to take all their inputs, take it to a processor or sell it to areas of opportunity within that environment. That way, what you are doing is that you are empowering the rural community sustainably in a manner that their earning potential increase and their economic progress also improved. That way, you are also reducing the tension on the urban city. There won't be any pressure for anybody to leave the rural community for the society, because if I plug into the agricultural initiative, I can earn maybe 100K or 120K monthly through the scheme, and then I will find wherever I am. There's no pressure for me to say I'm going to Lagos or I'm going to Abuja or Port Harcourt to go and look for better livelihood. You see, we need to rethink, agricultural empowerment and sustainable development through agriculture in that manner, such that we are empowering our rural community, and where the state can then focus on some maybe significant and strategic cash crops for the purpose of state strength, in that regard. So that's where we are currently looking at it from the agricultural perspective. But you will agree with me that where security is not, secured, even the environment is not secured, then all these strategies are just, balloon dreams, and we may not be able to achieve them.
Well, I'm going to let you go in a moment, but just before then, give us your outlook for Nigeria's business and investment climate for the 2024 fiscal year. From the services sector perspective, what should we be expecting?
So you were asking for our outlook for 2024 from a business perspective, isn't it? So for me, I think the first thing is I will mention that businesses need to be strong on liquidity, and especially for people that are in the manufacturing and productive sector. Liquidity will be king in 2024 as much as possible. If you want to unlock liquidity or get additional funding, from your stakeholders, this is the year that you need that shock, you need that shock absorber, in order to be able to weigh the storm. As long as we expect a slow recovery in the economy, we are able to only guarantee that to the extent that government is committed to all the recovery measures, that they are put on the tables, that they are going to implement. Where this is lacking for any reason, whether political reason or, for any other reasons that those measures are not implemented as fast as possible, we still expect inflation to be a bit high, if those measures are not there. And then, the push from January, if we continue in this trend, there could be some ray of hope. But like I said, liquidity is key in 2024. And you also want to then look at, as a business, how can you, re-engineer your OPEX, which is your operating expenses, do a re-engineering of your OPEX to see elements that can be possibly reduced or eliminated as the case may be. And lastly, you also want to seek alternatives, to some of the goods and services that you consume, for you to be able to survive within the environment.
Well, I think a good place to let you go. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Emmanuel Onasomi, lead partner at Ikadna Stone Professional Services. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Frank, for having me. Thank you.
Well, you've been watching Business Week coming to you from our studios here. Just before I let you go, let's tell you that Forex turnover grew in the week by 148.95% to $242.6 million US dollars as the Naira gained marginally against the dollar on Wednesday, 10th January 2024. The official market will remain above the 1,000 Naira to the dollar threshold. Data from the NAFEM, where Forex is officially traded, shows that domestic currency appreciated by 0.66% to close at 1,082 Naira 32 kobo to the dollar at the close of business. Similarly, the Naira gained marginally at the parallel Forex market, where Forex is sold unofficially. The exchange rate quoted at 1,240 Naira to the dollar, representing a 0.40% increase over what it closed the previous day, while peer-to-peer traders quoted around 1,252 Naira 60 kobo to the dollar. Well, that's our show this week. Thank you for watching. I am Frank Komalape. I'll see you again.
Every week, Green Angle in partnership